Yeah, hey, what are we gonna do, man?
Please bear with me on this video. This is my first time making a video. This video should help you on your fringe with this 3D star. Do not sew in warp 5 into warp 3. Leave that open. But so you do attach warp 5 to warp 1. You need this one open so you can stuff it once you're done with the fringe. And you get you a large piece of thread. Use a size 10 needle, or one that will work through the fringes, and weave in the thread. Work with as long as thread as you can work with. It's okay if it's a shorter thread, because you can always stop and weave it in. So basically, once you weave the thread in, you've got to get all the way to this first bead and come out this bead right here. And I'll be right back. Go ahead and pause it, weave in your thread, and get to this one right here, this first bead where the thread's coming out, this bead right here, and we'll get to the fringe. Be right back. Okay, so coming back to the pattern, this will be in your pattern, and you put the beads in order, or you can get creative and put your own style of beads on how you want, but this is the way I did my fringe. So basically, you're gonna put this one's gonna be first on your star. You'll see it on your deal, and you line it up. So this is how I have it, the sets. And of course the last one I forgot to put in. I'm trying to work with the camera in front of me, so I struggle a little. So you have your lineup. Now on the last bead you can use an 8/0 for weight to keep the weight, but the way I do it so the beads don't curl up on the fringe, I do a loose stitch. Never do it tight. So you run all your beads, you go over the copper bead, the last bead, and then you just go back up. Make sure you don't skip none, because that alone will make it curl up. I'm also having trouble with my wrist because I got stung by a bee earlier. Okay, so you've got, when you go up that last bead, sorry about that, you bring up your thread, and yes, I have my extra threads taped up here. Can get a little tricky. Well, I leave a little bit like that when I run it through, and then you go back up that same bead that you have the thread running out of. You go back up, and I'll show you how to get the right tension on it. Okay, see how that curls up right there? Okay, what you want to do, so you don't want that curl, and I suggest the first bead be a 15/0. You can use all 11s, an 8/0 at the end, or 11s, but my suggestion is to use a 15/0 at the end. If you've got long nails, just put your nail through there on the last bead, and pull up, and you'll get the right tension. It'll leave it loose, and it'll leave it straight. Next, you bring your thread. Oops, I forgot to cut my thread off from the weave. Let me get that off. It's kind of hard to see with these crystal beads. So what you do is you put the bead through the next bead next to that one. Gets a little tricky. And then the bead right below the one you just did the fringe. Okay, so it went down through that one, and you give it a little tug while you're holding the fringe, just so you don't see the bead color. Make sure you didn't pull the thread on the other fringe. Like I said, I'm sorry, this is my first time doing a video, and I'm trying to do it with the camera in front of me. Maybe if I pick it up a little, do it a lot better. Okay, when you going back up and you go next to that to this bead, then down to that one, then you go down a bead. So you're going to be skipping every other bead. Give it a slight tug, and then you do your lineup, your 15-0, your four of the red ones, or the colors you're using, the copper. Basically, you pick up the same amount of beads all throughout the fringe. Let's see, copper. It's kind of hard doing it with the camera sitting right in front of your face and trying to look over. For the turquoise, copper, and for the red, and then a copper. You do the same thing. You go back over, get that last red, and bring your beads through it. Try not to skip none. And then you go back up that one bead you came out. Oops. Again, see how how it curled up and I forgot one? So now I have to redo it. I'll be back so I can fix that. Okay, so I came back, had to take the thread out. And I gotta go, that's one bead that I skipped. So you go through all your beads. Do not go through the next bead yet until you get the threads all through your beads. I moved the camera, hopefully you can see. Sorry. One day I'll become a pro on doing videos. Again, you put it up, you put the thread up, that next bead that you came out of. Oh, if I can get it in there. Sorry about that, guys. There it goes. And you pull it all the way through. Again, to get it loose. You can also use a needle to get a needle and put it in between the last bead, the last two beads. You can put a needle between it to give it your tug, and it'll get the right amount of tension in there. Again, you go down the next bead. That would be the yellow one. You're going to your next fringe. I have a lot of thread because I still need to zip up that, and I use one whole thread for the whole star. And then once you go down that one, you go below. You could go below the bead below the fringe, the last fringe. Go down, and then you go down again, one more bead. As I said, you're going to skip every other bead. You're basically doing a weave around. Okay, and then you pick up the same amount of beads, your 15-0, oops, your 15-0, and your four reds, and mine it's the copper, and then black, two blacks, another copper, 4 turquoise, 1, 2, 4, a copper, and then 4 red, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a copper. Like I said, the last one can be an 8-0 or beads with a little bit of weight on them if you don't want to deal with the spacing, but you still have to do a loose stitch. But a heavier bead does keep the fringe down. I like the lightweight. So again, you go up over that copper, and you go this is my first time doing the fringe on a star. Usually if I do earrings, which by the way, you can actually use this warp square, possibly bead, use the pattern, bead some earrings with this. You'll make some cute earrings. I'm not at my best today, and it's kind of hard doing it on video and just make sure you go through all your beads, and even if you have to put it up. There, I got that one. And then you pull it. And of course you go back up that same bead you came out of just now with the fringe. And hopefully I don't fall asleep on you guys doing this, because like I said, I got stung by a bee and I took a Benadryl. I am allergic. I took a Benadryl. Then again, to make sure you've got enough of a loose tension on it, put your needle, you can put your needle or your fingernail right there, and then you just hold the fringe. You go to the next bead, next to that one, go down, and then you go down to the bead below it. You know, I understand a lot of people have their ways of doing a loose fringe, or their way of doing fringes. You can get creative, but for the fringes not to curl up, I've always used my nail. People can use a needle or you know, something as thick as a nail. A needle will work great, because you can just put the needle across the bead like that, you know, and then, you know, just pull your thread, you know, to get the right tension while you're holding that needle. Okay, so I went down to the side here, the side of that fringe, and I went down, go down one more. One more bead. You said we're going every other bead. So, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So go ahead and do seven fringes on this side, and I'll be back on your bottom fringe. We'll be back on your bottom fringe. Okay, so we're down to the 8th fringe. Now to get to the middle, you do the same thing. You go down the next bead after the last fringe. And then, of course, that last bead, not the one in the circle. Okay, so your thread is there. Now, you have 5 beads around here. Okay, so what you want to do, many of you tend to sew around these 5 beads as you're weaving in your warp square. I don't, not until the end. So what you want to do, whether you weaved around it or not, go in between those next 2 beads, put your needle through the inside out of it. Oops. Of course I get my threads tangled up. Okay, and you pick up your same amount of beads, your 15-0, pick up all the same amount of beads as the fret, as just keep doing the same amount. Let's see. For the turquoise, 2, 4, copper, 1, 2, 3, 4. Always remember, you need the 15-0s to start. I mean, you can use the 11s, but it gives it more of a flat look at the top if you use a smaller bead, but you can use your 11-0s on there. So what you're going to do, you go back up, but do not go through that 1 bead, not yet. Everybody has their way of doing fringes. I normally don't do it this way, but this is my first time on a star, so it's different. If you hear a grunting noise, that's my dog. She grunts like a little piggy. She's 14 years old and been grunting all her life. Now, do not go through the last 15-0. You just go up all the beads though. You leave that 15-0 there. And of course, like I said, I do not go up that 15-0 bead. Oops. Okay, now what you want to do is put another 15-0, and this is going to give it that even look, so it doesn't look like it's going sideways or whatnot. And what you want to do, because you see the 15-0 is on this side, so to give it that even look, you're going to put it on the other side up through there. Oops. My hands are not cooperating. And you bring it up. Oops. Okay, so see, when you put the other 15-0, if you look carefully, one on this side, you didn't go, when you went back up, you didn't go through it, but you put another 15-0, and then you went in through that side, and you went up. So what you want to do now, of course, you got to make sure that it's not tight again. Like I said, I use my nail. Now this is where it gets a little, where you got to be careful. And then once you go up to that one, you go up the next bead where there's like 2 beads, and then you can go up the blue bead after that. Oops. Let me try this again. Okay, so we're going to go up this bead right here. It's the next bead on the dress portion, not on the side of work. Let's see. There we go. You're up like that. Okay, so now make sure that it's not too tight. You don't want it to curl, but because these 2 beads are together, so you got to kind of make sure that you even it out. Like I said, I use my nail. You can use a needle. Okay, I'm happy with that one. Now what I do, after I go up that bead, I go up the blue bead, the next bead to the right, and then, and it's basically reverse of what we did on the first side. So then you go back down. You're going back down, and then you start with your fringe again. So basically you're going to do fringe here, the same like on this side, and then once you do that and you bring your needle up, you go down this one, okay, and then you'll go up this one, and then this one, and then this one. You'll go back down on this. You'll go back down on this one. So you're skipping every other bead for the fringe. But remember, on the 8th fringe, there's 5 beads in the middle, and those 2 beads, you're going to go out through that one, put your normal amount of beads, you know, with your 15-0 at the beginning, go up, and then after you go up, you put your 15-0 bead, and then you go up, you go on the back side again, not in the middle, not this way. You go up this way, and then you go up until, you know, and just weave it in till you skip those 2 beads right there. If you see there's 2 together, and you go up to this one, and you can see by doing, when you do this side, that you're on the right spot going down. Now a lot of people like full fringes, and you can do the same thing. Instead, if you don't want to skip every other bead, you can do every bead. You know, you just the same amount, and it'll give a fuller effect, you know, fuller fringe, and it'll still go down, you know, and line up and whatnot. As long as you use the same amount of beads, it'll line up. Now on this star, I have 19 beads, so I would say, because I didn't want to, and the reason I did 19, and of course number 8 has 20 beads, is because I did the count. I didn't want the beads, the fringe, to cover this part, so I did my count and did it this way, so you can do the same, you know, the same. I mean, it's your choice. You can add more beads. Like for instance, this got 20 beads, so I would say if you don't want it to pass this area, you could probably add about 6 more beads on each deal, and it gives it, you know, longer fringes. You know, that's your choice. Just play around with your fringe. You can do your own design on the fringe, your own colors for the dress. The hands, I prefer I like the red. The reason I do the hands is because this is an MMIW star, and of course I used a red dress because they also use the red dresses on the ceremonies. But so the hands, you know, represent something. The the red dress does too, but a lot of people, I'm sure, would want to change the color of the dress. As long as the hands are the same, it's still going to represent the same thing. And so, you know, you can change your colors throughout, like change the color. Like in my patterns, I have testers that do my patterns. So they change their colors around. So on the some of them, the feathers will be different colors, but it's still the same. They'll change their border. I've got a copper border, you know, so it's, and of course I put a hook before I stuff it, you know, so I can hang it, you know, put your own hook. I kind of wire mine up. Well, once you get done putting the fringe, then once you get to the end, you weave it in your thread, cut it off, zap it, whatever, you know, where you can actually even put the needle where it goes through and cut the threads from the inside. And then you stuff it. You stuff it, and then you zip up warp 5 to 4. This is warp. This part's warp 4, and this part's warp 5. Usually, you know, I know that most people zip up as they go, but it's easier if you leave. Don't zip up between warp 4 and 5. Instead, zip up warp 5 to 1 once you do that, and just leave it open. And once you do that, then you stuff it and everything, and you have your star. Hope you enjoy this. Thank you.